Wildish tea, an alcoholic tea made with real ingredients like whole tea leaves.
Hello everybody, my name is Verde Arbusto, and I want to thank you to the Schumann Harmonics Resonances. And what we have here is we have a video from Wages World, and I wanted to have this opportunity to talk about this video because it is it's kind of an esoteric. It's one of the more advanced issues that I think should be brought up, but this is his video, and I want to comment on it. So I'm going to go over what he says. I want to play the video for you to hear it, and I'm going to go back so you can hear it from the beginning. And I'm going to turn up the volume so we all can hear it. Okay. So this is the video that he's got. Hello, hold on. Let me find the sound first.
Here. It is June 1st, 2020. To match it with the video. Alright guys, we're going to start here on the Schumann. Yeah, we're still getting spikes. Again, I have to point out, and I'm going to point this out every time until it quits doing it. Pulsing. I mean, I just really don't know what to say about that. That most definitely is some pulsing. Now, I've also noticed something else here that, you know, some other people might not notice because they don't look at it as much as I do. But if you guys look real close here, see that? It's a backward C. Well, actually, it's a frontward C if you look at it. But I think what that is, you remember the spheres that we were seeing there at that Hz level? Okay? I think that's part of that. Whether it was to continue out. Now, when I zoomed out like this earlier, the first thing I seen, and check this out, guys, was this.
Okay, before we go into that, what I'm going to talk about is, he says a couple things first. The pulsing. When we're talking about this, the pulsing of it, it's important to keep in mind that there's a sample rate to acquiring the signal on the Schumann. Okay? Now, digital has, I'm just moving the camera here. Digital has a sampling rate to go from audio, analog audio to digital. There's a sampling rate of 44.1 kilohertz. So that means in 1 second, it has sampled the music 44.1 thousand times. Okay? It's important to note that this may not be a pulsing so much as a sampling. Okay? Where you see these breaks in here may not necessarily be a pulsing or a breathing or a heartbeat or any of that. I think first and foremost, it's important to know that the Schumann antennas take a sampling of the environment. The second thing is that these all have different modes in them, all right? So these white spikes are not only just white spikes. These are also yellow, red, and green in there. So what people call the whiteout is the abundance of the white mode in here, and it is not just white light. It's not white light that's coming in, but it's not just white mode. It is also the presence of these in here as well. So I don't have it here to show you. Normally I do, and I would show you this, but you can see the spikes when it shows the amplitude, that there's peaks of white in there, but there are also the prevalence of what I call the synchronous mode, which is the yellow, mode 2, the red, mode 3, and the green, mode 4. Okay, and you know that because you also see there's a green spike there, there's a green spike there, that's yellow in there. Let me click a bit close up of that. I'm giving you a close-up here. So you can see these are red, orange, various colors. Maybe not see it that well. All right. That is another color in there. Blurtily blurb. These are mid-grade electrics. That's what I'm calling mid-grade electrics. The yellow and red. That's a yellow and red-green, ugly brown combination in there. That's what that is. And what we're talking about in this particular episode here, this particular video, are the shapes, noticeable shapes. So he's talking about this C shape in here, okay, and then he's going to go on here about another shape that you see in there. All right. There's two things. I forget which one was. All right, I'll just let this play again, and I'm sure it'll come back to me. Hello.
Now, that about blew my mind, because that is not spherical. That is hexagonal. Okay? That is six-sided, is what that is.
Please zoom out so I can see. All right.
Okay? So, it's very faint, but it's there. I would encourage everybody to go look at it for themselves. Maybe even put a filter on there to look at it better. But you can most definitely see it, and it's almost like it has, well, I hate to say this, guys, but it looks almost like Ezekiel's will. There's so much weird stuff going on, I don't even want to add to it. You know what I mean, guys? But I have to be truthful for what I see here. That's what I'm seeing. I mean, you guys, it's very faint, but it looks like Ezekiel. I mean, even in the middle, you could tell that right in the stinking middle of that, there is something there, okay? And then on the sides, like this, and to me, guys, that's not a natural thing. That, when you see perfect geometric shapes like that, that is something that's being caused by something intelligent. We see this stuff on the poles of Saturn and stuff like.
Okay, so yes and no. So I agree with what you said, but I am not of the nature of saying that this is perfectly formed, first and foremost. Yes, what he said is correct, that when you do see geometric shapes, perfectly formed shapes like a circle, our lines here, you may not be able to see it. All right, but there's a dedicated line here. Yes, those are generally machine-made, man-made. Another one up here, dedicated frequency line, I've been calling that. Likely that is man-made, likely that is human, yes. However, the question comes is whether or not I am willing to accept that it's a perfectly formed geometric shape. I see something there, yes, but I don't accept that it is the perfect shape that you're saying it is.
That was one of the new things we've seen here in the past couple years, the hexagonal shape, showing up there. There's a lot of weird stuff going on when we come to shapes. Now, we all know, and that's why I'm talking about it here, because guys, with frequency, if you dial in the right frequency, you can make any shape you want. Just by using frequency.
Yes, that is true. By using frequency, quote-unquote frequency, you can make any shape you want. However, the question is, frequency of what and in what is what we're talking about. There's a frequency that is a velocity. Ay caramba. The word frequency has way too many meanings for it to be applied equally to all of this stuff. I think that's the best way to put it. We hear the word frequency, and naturally people think of one thing. Okay, I just had to move my camera. People think of frequency like, how do I explain this? When the average person comes into this discussion about the Schumann resonances, and they hear frequency, they think of their car moving. They think of a velocity, moving, propagating, rolling along. Okay, so it's important to note frequency, like a dedicated frequency of 30 hertz, is caused by a machine, okay? Yet there is a natural frequency of this that is the natural Earth's movement, the natural wavelength frequency. The frequency of a propagating wave is not the same thing in any way, shape, or form of the frequency of a standing wave or a resonance wave. Period. The resonance wave comes from a difference between two dissonant or competing frequencies. The resonance frequency is a subtraction of a whole bunch of frequency, a whole bunch of wavelength. I think that's important to understand. When we're talking about the frequency of the Schumann resonances, the initial waves are given in kilometers. It's a kilometer scale. The initial frequency of the waves is not measured in cycles per second. It's measured in the wavelength per unit of measure. So the propagating, the rolling wave is a different wave than the standing wave. The resonant wave is a different wave form than the rolling wave, which people think of in velocity. So while it is true, frequency, quote unquote, does a lot of things, the trick is to control that frequency. That is important to understand. How do you control the frequency?
Depending on the material that you're using.
There you go. Depending on the material you're using.
And whatever you're using there, like water. Now, have you guys ever watched the Blue Man Group? I'm not sure if you guys know who that is. Maybe I'm dating myself. I know they still do their shows like in Chicago and Vegas and all that. Basically it turns into a rock show, but if you guys remember the Intel computer commercials from back in the day, they were blue. Those guys were blue because that was the Blue Man Group. And they did a lot of drum stuff, but in their show, they would actually beat on the drums with these with water beads and everything else, and it was just really cool. But they were using frequency and they were producing shapes. Okay, so they were doing it in music, so they can do it in other stuff also.
Yes and no. They were doing that in music with water. That's a compressible medium. The difference between sound frequency, rolling waves, and electromagnetic frequency is that the audio waves need a compressible medium. It needs a medium to transmit the pressure. It's a mechanical sound. Sound is a mechanical wave. It's a physical thing that needs to move through some medium. Okay. Electromagnetics is not that way. Schumann resonance waves are not compression waves. They're not pressure waves. They move through vacuum. They can move through a vacuum. So while I would agree in theory with what blue Kool-Aid, with what Mark is saying, yes, while what you're saying is true, the same principles of moving stuff, moving the medium to produce a sound, that is not, I'm trying to think of the way to say it, that is not this, you can't do that with electromagnetism. So you can produce certain shapes with frequency, yes, in a compressible medium. Okay, so we have sound doing one thing. Now, as far as the electromagnetics, this is something different. This is different than doing that. I have used the analogy of an Etch-a-Sketch where you have a vertical and a horizontal, and those two functions are equal relative to a medium, a compressible medium, say graphite, okay, where you can shape it exactly how you want it because both the horizontal and the vertical are the same units of measure. Those are dimensions, if you will. And I've talked about the difference between a dimension and a density. With the electromagnetics, with the Schumann frequencies, it's different because you have the electrics coming in are not attached to the magnetics. The magnetics, generally speaking, come after the electrics have kind of bled off into the environment. So, how do I explain this? So the magnetics of it, or I'm sorry, the electrics of it are these spikes here. Those are what we'll call lightning flashes. Okay. They may or may not be actual lightning flashes, but we're calling them that for the sake of the Schumann theory. Okay. Even these these jammy jammies here, which are not, I'm pretty sure they're not lightning, but we're calling them for the sake of the discussion. So these lightning flashes are instantaneous. This is a moment in time. Bam, flash, boom, they're gone. Hit it and quit it, boom. What we're left with as a result of that are the magnetics. The magnetics are the physical wave. Okay? The magnetics are the Schumann resonances. And it's fine, HARP, I gave that, I showed the video, or I forget what it was a web page, where Mr. Lone Tree was talking about, or Miller, I think it was Miller, who was talking about having worked on the HARP project and recorded a 2 hertz line. So HARP was able to produce a 2 hertz line. And I'm calling a 2 hertz line the HARP line as a distinction to what it is. 2 and 3 hertz dedicated line. I'm designating those as the HARP lines, because I can prove and I can show that HARP will produce, if they're going to, produce a 2 or a 3 hertz line. Okay. Now, the problem I come into is going from the electric to the magnetic back to the electric in an organized way. Okay. Now, keep in mind here, we already have an organized shape. We have a square. Here's a square, a box. We have a square, we have a square. We have a lot of squares here, okay? So, to get a geometric shape isn't necessarily difficult. We have seen rounded shapes in there in various artifacts. And the question comes, how did they get those rounded shapes? Is that really an actual signal that's in the atmosphere? Is that truly a signal that's floating around in the atmosphere? Or is it just the way that you are seeing it? That you are processing it on a two-dimensional flat surface? So, as I go into this, as we go forward, one needs to remember that sure, you see an organized shape, but is that just because it's a shadow on the wall? Anyone who's familiar with Plato's analogy of the cave, of people living in a cave, and what they see are the shadows on the wall, and then that becomes the reality that everyone has, these shadows. That's exactly the same thing here. That you are seeing a two-dimensional flat surface of what is actually a four-dimensional figure in the real life. So, in real life, in the real world, these are upright. The antenna is measuring these upright. That's correct. The antenna, which measures these, is 90 degrees perpendicular to that. So these are flat. This is upright. The antenna, the spikes, the antenna is upright, vertical. And these are two induction coils which are on the ground and get the signal 90 degrees perpendicular to that. So this image here that you're seeing is an approximation. It's a mirage of what the actual signal really truly is. All right, so I think that's really important to make mention of that at this point, that physically speaking, that's how the antennas grab the signal. And so even though you're seeing this plotted that way, there is a V-shaped two antennas that are like that are on the ground, like that, okay? And then the vertical is like that. So, like that is more or less, if you can kind of see that, the configuration of the Schumann antennas.
And I say that because, again, we're looking at a frequency tool here, okay? There's no reason why it couldn't produce shapes. I encourage everybody to look that up because it'll blow your mind what you can do if you dial in the right frequency at the right intensity. And, guys, you can just produce any shape you want.
Yes, that may be true in a compressible medium. However, I'm finding it rather difficult to believe that since these spikes are instantaneous, they set time itself. These spikes coming in are what establish time. These are what establishes the dimensions. The density scale, these are the spatial densities that are created. Someone's lighting fireworks off outside. All right, hold on. Okay, I think we're done with the fireworks for now. Okay, so in order to control the frequency, you need to be able to, how do I say, adjust. Like I said, the Etch-a-Sketch where you have one vertical, one horizontal, you can turn the knob at the same time. Okay. And you can get a circle using the same medium of the graphite. The medium of the Schumann resonances is our atmosphere, which is springy. It's spring-loaded. Okay, that's important to mention. Maybe a minor detail, but it's important to mention that. So, how do you establish, you have two uprights, lightning strike. These are maybe, I don't know, we'll say 10 minutes. This is hour, how do we put this? This is 1 hour here, 1 hour there. All right, so in this space here, we're talking about, this is 14, this is 15, I guess 15's here, this is 16, that's the right way, that's 16, that's 16, that's 17, that's 18. All right, so I'm pretty sure that humans can't produce these high, I don't know how you'd get that synchronous mode. I mean, it may be possible, I don't know. But this is part of what it is we're talking about, is how you produce these uprights. I don't know. It's possible. They are, again, we've talked about this here, that the thin lines are local. It's either according to the, I've showed you the satellite data where they talk about this, where the spikes are local, bing, bing, bing. These uprights are local, and the dotted line, the dedicated frequency, these are local as well. Okay, so it's not someone on the other side of the world that's affecting the Tomsk, this here spectrograph. It would be someone in Tomsk, in Russia, local to Russia, that would be doing this, making the geometric shapes. Okay, so I have looked into it, and I'm finding it difficult to believe that, knowing what I know, that you have 3 axes of antennas, I'm fairly convinced that it would not be easy to make that repeatedly.
Seriously.
I am serious.
That's a very legit thing to look at. Now, again, guys, if you guys focus out, let your focus on your eyeballs just kind of, instead of just focusing on something, let it kind of blur out. Let your eyes relax when you're looking at this stuff sometimes. And I'm telling you, you're going to see more than what you think. You actually see stuff out of your peripheral that you didn't catch because you were so focused on something else. And that's how I've seen stuff like this. Okay? Not to mention that I do look at this stuff all the time. And again, what I'm looking at here, guys, is right here. Okay? That is a hexagon with almost like what looks like spokes, which would look like Ezekiel's wheel, guys. So, take that for whatever you want to take it there. Is that something that's being done intentional? I can't help but think that it most definitely is. Okay? You put the middle there, you put your little spokes out here, and you got Ezekiel's wheel, guys. So, anyway, that's something I noticed, and I just wanted to bring that to you and show it to you. And also, the spiking, number one, ringing in your ears and anything else that goes along with that, plus the pulsing. So,
the spiking, is the electrical. Okay? These electrical uprights are not likely causing the ringing in the ears. Ringing in the ears. Likely not caused by that. This is electric, and I did a video where I talked about the two common things: the tinnitus, the ringing in the ears, and the vertigo. So the electric would be related to the piezoelectric principle. Okay. The electrics are the piezoelectric principle. Okay, and the horizontal lines, those are magnetics. That would be the ringing in the ears. Okay? So the vertigo is caused by the electrics, the upright electrics. This is a magnetic induction, which is giving you the ringing in the ears. Ringing in the ears. Okay, I had to do that. All right, back to our video.
that's what I noticed there. So, we're going to move on.
Okay, I'm moving on to a different topic. Where are we? Oh, here it is. All right, I'm zooming out. Zooming out. Zooming out. Zooming out. All right, so somewhere around here is where he was. All right, roughly here. So, in our, all right, so what I did with this was I went to the archive. Okay, I went to the archive, which is basically archive.org. I punched in the Tomsk. This is sosrfv.tsu.ru/new/shm.jpg. All right. So we hit enter. All right. So what you find is these are a number of hits from the times that they have crawled, what they say crawl the website. So they have saved, the archive.org has saved a number of these web pages, not all of them. You see the blue ones are what they've saved. They haven't saved all of them. All right. But this one here, June 1, 9:55. All right. So this is what I had gone to. Look myself. Okay. So this is the archive version of what I'm going to show you. So it's not as clear. I think it's a different image here. When you see it in the archive, it's different things are it's a different image. I just put it that way. I don't know how to put it different. But when you get the image, most people aren't doing what we're doing, what I'm doing. Okay. So they don't need it the same way that I would need it, I guess. I don't know how to put that. But for our purposes, this is the image we got, and this is what we're looking at. So it may be possible that in this particular image, it's going to look a little different, which I think is fine. It's going to look a little different than the one the Wages World has. Okay, but I think for our purposes, it's actually all for the better. All right. So now, when we look at this area here, this is generally what he's talking about. When I first looked at it, I could see a circle, a circular shape. So he's talking about this in here, a circular shape. But what is it that's making it a circular shape? By consciousness, it should not automatically be assumed that it's human consciousness. It may very well intentionally be the consciousness of the planet. I will maintain that fully and wholeheartedly. That when we talk about consciousness, I believe that the planet itself is more conscious than many of the people that I have met, quite honestly. And the majority of people that I've met, I will truly say they are just asleep and not conscious. They operate by instinct, operate by memory, by anger. Most people are not consciously aware of anything, at any rate. So, consciousness to me very well means the consciousness of the planet. Now, I'm going to say something. He pointed out the hexagon shape on Jupiter, the pole of Jupiter. That is also Saturn has one. Other planets also have hexagonal shape on them. And there's a reason for that, because that hexagonal shape is supportable by the natural processes. It is, how do I say this? It is a sustainable shape. A square with the square edges is not a sustainable shape. That is a very man-made, 90 degrees, a very man-made edges. 90 degrees are man-made edges, and those are clearly seen where mankind is. But in nature, you do not find 90-degree edges. The edge part of it gets knocked off into often a hexagonal shape. So the hexagonal shape is generally what's left, the natural process of what's left after humans have built a square. I'm going to put that as like the most, maybe I'll use as the caption. Hexagonal shapes are what nature produces after mankind makes a square. So, mankind makes a square, makes a box, easy to build, and then nature knocks off the edges and creates either an octagon or a